Good morning, mathematicians. Check that you're prepared for math. Make sure you have your math journal, your math folder with your learning intention sheet, your pencil, and a board marker and eraser in front of you. Give me a thumb up if you've got all those things and are ready to go. Alright, let's get started by filling out our math learning intentions. Make sure you fill out today's date. And for lesson 1.2, today as a mathematician, I am working on naming, drawing, and describing rays, lines, and line segments. Alright, let's get started with our warm-up. Remember, everyone must do the problems here in the must do section. If you're speedy and you get done early, or if you want the extra challenge, you may also do the may do problems over here. Remember, you don't need to write the problem, only the answer. Go ahead and get started now. Alright, now I'll say the problem and you say the answer after I say equals. 9 minus 0 equals 7 minus 2 equals 11 minus 1 equals 12 minus 6 equals 14 minus 6 equals. We'll do the same with the may do side now. 16 minus 9 equals 12 minus 7 equals 70 minus 30 equals, and 140 minus 70 equals. You can go ahead and erase your boards and put your board marker and eraser off to the side. In this unit, we're going to be studying geometry. I'm going to read to you page 88 in the student reference book, and as I read, I want you to be listening closely for 3 places geometry can be found in our world. Geometry in our world. The world is filled with geometry. There are angles, segments, lines, and curves everywhere you look. There are 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional shapes of every type. Many wonderful geometric patterns can be seen in nature. You can find patterns in flowers, spiderwebs, leaves, seashells, even your own face and body. The ideas of geometry are also found in the things people create. Think of the games you play. Checkers is played with round pieces. The game board is covered with squares. Basketball and tennis are played with spheres. They are played on rectangular courts that are painted with straight and curved lines. The next time you play or watch a game, notice how geometry is important to the way the game is played. The places we live in are built from plans that use geometry. Buildings almost always have rectangular rooms. Outside walls and roofs often include sections that have triangular shapes. Archways are curved and are often shaped like semicircles or half circles. Staircases may be straight or spiral. Buildings and rooms are often decorated with beautiful patterns. You see these decorations on doors and windows, on walls, floors, and ceilings, and on railings of staircases. Go ahead now and turn and tell your partner the 3 places that you notice geometry can be found in our world. In this unit, we'll be using lots of different tools to help us. We'll be using a ruler to help with our measurement. We will be using straight edges. This is an example of a straight edge. It's a folder, and it can be used to draw straight lines. A ruler is also a straight edge. And we also have our geometry template that we'll be using. it is actually also a straight edge that has a ruler on the side. It's got many different shapes and a protractor. We will also be using our calculators. So if you have not gotten yours yet, you'll want to make sure that you purchase your calculator. And we'll be using a compass, which is a tool to help draw circles. It is very important to remember that all of these items are tools, not toys. So they should be used the correct way and not played with. Today we will be learning about points, line segments, lines, and rays. On the board I have drawn 2 dots. I've labeled them dot A and dot B. These dots represent points. When a straight edge is used to connect 2 points, it is called a line segment. Line segments have 2 points on the end to show that it has a starting and stopping point. We can use letters to name line segments. Because this line segment has the points A and B, we could name it line segment AB, just like this with the 2 letters and the line segment above. We could also name it the other way around and call it line segment BA. Those are the short ways of writing it instead of writing out the words line segment. Like I said before, the line segments are named here by each of their endpoints, A and B. When thinking about a line segment, you can remember it by being straight and thin, having a beginning and an end, and having a length that can be measured because it has a stopping and starting point. The next thing we want to talk about is a line. A line can be made by extending the line segment in both directions and drawing arrows at the end. So if I take line segment AB, draw through the points just like this, and put arrows on the end, that makes it a line because these arrows show that this goes on and on forever in both directions. Now, just as we named line segment AB up above, let's think of 2 different ways that we could name line AB right here. Give me a thumb up when you've got one of those ways. You got it. We could either name it line AB, and you'll notice the difference is it's got the 2 arrowheads on the top to show that it's a line, or line BA. Lastly, we're going to talk about something called a ray. Unlike a line segment that stops at 2 endpoints, or a line that goes on and on forever in 2 different directions, a ray is kind of a combination of the both. It has a stopping endpoint, and it goes on and on forever, but only in one direction. When we were naming the line segment and line, we used the letters A and B, but really you can use any letters as you name any of these figures. So for this one, let's do the letters X and Y. When naming a ray, it's really important to remember the direction the arrow is facing. So we see here there's an end point by the X and an arrow by the Y. So when we draw out our symbols, we need to show that the end point is by the X and the arrow is by the Y. So we could name this ray, ray XY, just like that. Let's take a look at one more ray. This ray starts at endpoint D and goes on and on forever to point C. So we would call this ray, ray DC. And we want to make sure that the arrow above here is pointing off towards C because we can see that the arrow is closest to letter C over here and the endpoint is by D. So remember that when naming your rays. Teachers, we're going to pause the video here and practice making line segments, lines, and rays with our hands. Now let's take a look at this line right here. I want you and your partner to talk about all of the different names of line segments that you can find within this line. Turn and talk now. Hopefully you and your partners found 6 different line segments in this line. Line segment XY, line segment YZ, line segment XZ, and then going backwards, line segment ZX, line segment ZY, and line segment YX. When writing out all of those names, it should have looked like this. Now turn and tell your partner all of the lines you have found. You should have found line XY, YZ, XZ, ZX, ZY, and YX, the exact same as the line segments above. Give a thumbs up if you found all of those. Finally, how many rays can you name from this line? Turn and talk to your partner now. You hopefully found ray XY or ray XZ, ray ZX or ZY, or ray YX or ray YZ. Again, remember that when writing out the name for the ray, you always make sure that you have your endpoint by the point that is the endpoint, and your arrow by the point that goes on and on forever. For today's work, you will be doing page 4 in your math journal about points, line segments, lines, and rays. Make sure to follow the directions very closely when it says to use a straight edge to draw the following. All lines, line segments, and rays should be drawn with a straight edge, not freehand. When it says draw and label, you're not only going to draw, but you're going to make sure you have those points correctly labeled with the letters as well. For today's work, you'll be working on Math Journal page 4, finishing Math Boxes 1.2, and after that, playing Addition Top It Extended Facts version. You can look at that on the Student Reference Book, page 263 for the directions, and you'll have Math Masters page 506 to play that game. But before we do any of that work, we're going to do a little writing to show what we know about lines, line segments, and rays. So you're going to do on a half sheet of paper an exit slip where you're going to explain the difference between a line segment, and ray. Use complete sentences. You may include drawings or symbols to explain. When this is completed, you'll be dismissed to do the rest of your math work. Work hard and make it a great day.